The first bullet hit Bryn's shoulder before she could even scream. The second tore into her side. The third caught her lower back as she threw herself over the little girl. Pain exploded through her body like fire. The world around her erupted into chaos, screams, shattering glass, running footsteps. She lay on the cobblestones, blood pooling beneath her. The child under her was crying but unharmed. "Stay awake." Small hands patted her face desperately. Through the haze of pain, she heard someone shouting, pushing through the crowd. Heavy footsteps. Then a man's face above hers, handsome, terrified, familiar. His hands pressed against her wounds. "Stay with me," he begged, his voice breaking in a way that seemed impossible for someone like him. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was his whispered promise. "You're mine now." If you're already feeling your heart race, wondering who shot her, why this man is making such a bold claim, and what happens next, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because this story is about to take you on a journey you won't believe. Now back to the story. Bryn Holloway had been working for the Namgung family for almost a year when the shooting happened. She was just a girl from Memphis trying to make ends meet, desperate enough to take a job that paid too well and asked too few questions. She'd grown up bouncing between foster homes, learning early that the world wasn't fair and nobody was coming to save her. The only constant in her life had been her grandmother, the one person who'd fought to get her back when Bryn was 16. Now that grandmother was in a hospital bed with medical bills piling up, and Bryn was willing to do just about anything to help her. So when she saw the job listing, live-in nanny, no experience necessary, salary that made her eyebrows shoot up, she jumped at it. Even when the interview took place in a Garden District mansion with security cameras everywhere. Even when the staff gave her looks that screamed, "Run while you can." Even when she met 5-year-old Minji Namgung, a little girl with sad eyes who said, "You'll leave too." Everyone leaves. Bryn should have noticed the red flags. The way the staff whispered about the master. The late-night meetings. The men in suits who came and went at all hours. The way people either respected or feared the Namgung name. Korean Mafia, they called it, though never where anyone important could hear. But Bryn had learned long ago not to ask questions she didn't want answered. She kept her head down, sent money home to Memphis, and fell completely in love with the lonely little girl who just needed someone to see her. She'd only met Taehyun Namgung twice in 11 months. The first time, he'd walked through the kitchen while she was making Minji's lunch. He'd glanced at her with eyes so dark they seemed to swallow light, nodded once, and kept walking. He hadn't asked her name. The second time was just 3 days before everything changed. It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday. Taehyun had business meetings all day, so Bryn decided to take Minji out for a treat. The little girl loved the French Quarter, the music, the street performers, the beignets at that little cafe just off Bourbon Street. "Can I have extra powdered sugar?" Minji asked, bouncing in her seat. "You're already sweet enough," Bryn teased, but nodded at the waitress anyway. The afternoon was perfect. Warm but not too hot. Jazz playing somewhere nearby. Tourists wandering past with shopping bags and cameras. Minji had powdered sugar all over her face and was giggling in a way she rarely did at home. Home. When had she started thinking of the Namgung mansion as home? Bryn was wiping sugar from Minji's cheek when she saw the black SUV pull up. Something about it made the hair on her neck stand up. The windows rolled down slowly. She didn't think. She just moved. "Minji, down." She grabbed the child and hit the ground just as the first shot cracked through the air. Pain. God, the pain. It slammed through her body like a freight train, stealing her breath, making her vision swim. She curled tighter around Minji, making herself as big a shield as possible. More gunshots. Screaming. The SUV's tires squealing as it sped away. And Minji, sobbing against her chest. "Bryn. Bryn, you're bleeding," It's okay, baby girl. The words came out wet, wrong. Are you hurt? Tell me you're not hurt. I'm not hurt. But you are. There's so much blood. The little girl's hands were pressed against Bryn's shoulder, trying to stop the bleeding like she'd seen in movies. Bryn wanted to tell her it would be okay. Wanted to wipe away those tears. But everything was getting fuzzy around the edges. The cobblestones felt cold against her cheek. Someone call an ambulance, a tourist was screaming. My phone's dead, another voice. The world was tilting, spinning, going dark at the edges. Minji's face kept fading in and out. Don't leave me, the little girl begged. You promised. You promised you wouldn't leave. And she had promised, hadn't she? That first day, when Minji had looked at her with those ancient, lonely eyes. Sirens in the distance. More shouting. Then running footsteps, heavy and fast. A voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. Where is she? Where's my daughter? Taehyun Namgung pushed through the crowd, his security team fanning out around the scene. He dropped to his knees beside them, not caring about his expensive suit hitting the bloody stones. Minji, his voice broke when he saw his daughter covered in blood. Not mine, Minji sobbed. It's Bryn's. She jumped in front of me. She saved me, Daddy. Taehyun's eyes, those cold, calculating eyes that had barely looked at Bryn for almost a year, locked onto hers with an intensity that burned through the fog of pain. No. No, no, no. His hands pressed against her wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. Stay with me, Bryn. Look at me. She tried. God, she tried. But it was getting harder to focus, harder to stay. Ambulance is 2 minutes out, one of his men reported. That's too long. Taehyun slid his arms under her, lifting her against his chest like she weighed nothing. Get the car. The movement sent fresh pain shooting through her body. She must have made a sound, because his grip gentled immediately. I know it hurts, he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. Just hold on a little longer. Minji was crying, reaching for her. Is she going to die? No, Taehyun said fiercely. She's not. I won't let her. As if he had that kind of power. As if he could command death itself. Maybe he could. They called him the ghost of the Gulf for a reason. His face kept blurring in and out of focus, but Bryn could see something there she'd never seen before. Fear. Actual fear. This man who controlled half of New Orleans with a phone call was terrified. Why? He asked, voice rough. Why did you do it? You could have run. You could have saved yourself. Bryn's hand, acting without permission from her fading brain, reached up to touch his face. Her bloody fingertips left marks on his perfect skin. She's just a baby, she whispered. Someone had to protect her. Something shifted in his expression. Something fundamental and irreversible. You saved my daughter. His voice dropped low, intense. In my world, that debt can't be repaid with money or gratitude. It can only be repaid with blood. His eyes burned into hers, fierce and absolute. You're my wife now, Bryn Holloway. From this moment forward, you belong to me. And I protect what's mine. She wanted to laugh. Wanted to tell him that was insane. That you couldn't just claim a dying woman on a sidewalk. That marriages needed consent and paperwork and preferably both parties conscious. But darkness was pulling her under, and she only had strength for one more sentence. You remembered my name, she whispered. And then the world went black. 11 months earlier, Memphis, Tennessee. Bryn sat beside her grandmother's hospital bed, holding a hand that seemed smaller than she remembered. The steady beep of monitors filled the room, mixing with the soft wheeze of oxygen. She'd brought fresh flowers, cheap carnations from the grocery store, but they added a splash of color to the sterile white room. "You don't need to worry about me," her grandmother whispered, though her eyes told a different story. "I'll be fine." "I know you will," Bryn lied, squeezing that frail hand. "Doctor says you're improving." Another lie. The doctor had actually said words like advanced stage and comfort care and difficult decisions. Back at her apartment that night, Bryn spread the medical bills across her tiny kitchen table. The numbers blurred together into one impossible sum. She'd picked up extra shifts at both the diner and the gas station, but it was like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. Her grandmother was all she had. The only person who'd ever fought to get her back when the system swallowed her at age 7. While other foster families collected checks and kept their distance, her grandmother had spent years navigating courts and social workers to bring Bryn home at 16. And now Bryn couldn't even keep her comfortable in her final months. She opened her laptop, scrolling through job listings for the 100th time. That's when she saw it. Live-in nanny position. New Orleans. No experience necessary. Immediate start. Salary, $85,000 per year. Bryn blinked, sure she'd misread the number. That was more than triple what she made now. She read the listing 3 times. It was light on details, just an email address to send qualifications. No mention of who the family was, how many children, or why they were paying so much. The red flags were obvious. Too good to be true. Too few questions. Too urgent. But Bryn had been fighting her whole life. Different beds, different rules, different families, who wanted the check more than they wanted her. She'd learned early that the only person who would ever truly have her back was herself. She sent her resume that night. Got a response within an hour. Had a brief phone interview the next morning. "The job is yours if you want it," the woman said. "Can you start Monday?" 5 days later, Bryn was on a bus to New Orleans with everything she owned in 2 suitcases. If she'd known then what she knew now, if she'd understood whose daughter she was about to meet, whose world she was about to enter, would she have taken the job? Honestly? Yes. Because Minji Namgung needed someone to love her. And Bryn Holloway had never been able to walk away from someone who needed her. The car sent to pick her up from the bus station was black and expensive, with windows tinted so dark they looked solid. The driver didn't speak, just loaded her bags and opened her door. As they drove, the neighborhoods changed. From gritty to nice to holy crap, people actually live like this. They finally turned onto a tree-lined street in the Garden District where houses looked more like museums. The Namgung estate wasn't just a house. It was a statement. Massive iron gates opened automatically as they approached. Security cameras swiveled to track their movement. The driveway was lined with magnolia trees, their waxy leaves catching the morning sunlight. The mansion itself was classic New Orleans, part antebellum, part modern fortress. Bryn clutched her purse tighter, suddenly aware of her thrift store jeans and scuffed sneakers. "This way, please." A woman in her 60s, Korean with steel gray hair pulled into a perfect bun, waited at the door. Her black dress was simple but clearly expensive. "I am Mrs. Park, the head of household." Her English was precise, her expression unreadable. "I will show you around." Inside was all polished marble and gleaming hardwood. Staff in uniforms moved efficiently, barely glancing at Bryn as they passed. "Your quarters are through here," Mrs. Park led her down a hallway. "You will have your own bathroom. Meals are provided. Days off are negotiated based on Mr. Namgung's schedule." The room was bigger than Bryn's entire apartment in Memphis. Simple but comfortable. "Mr. Namgung values his privacy," Mrs. Park continued, her voice dropping slightly. "You will not disturb him. You will not ask questions. You will care for Miss Minji and nothing else." Bryn nodded, though a chill ran through her at the woman's tone. Throughout the tour, Bryn noticed photographs of a beautiful Korean woman. Same face in different rooms, laughing on a beach, elegant in evening wear, cradling a baby. Minji's mother? Bryn asked. Mrs. Park's expression tightened. Yes. Mrs. Namgung passed 2 years ago. As they walked, Bryn caught snippets of conversation from other staff. The ghost of the Gulf, one maid whispered to another when they thought Bryn couldn't hear. They say he can make people disappear with a phone call. They say he hasn't smiled since his wife died. But the little one, the other maid shook her head sadly. He can barely look at her. Too much of her mother in her face, I think. The smell of jasmine drifted through open windows, mixing with something Bryn couldn't quite name. Money, maybe. Or secrets. Minji's nursery was a little girl's dream, all pink and white, with a canopy bed and shelves of toys that looked untouched. The child herself sat in the middle of the floor, surrounded by dolls she wasn't playing with. Just arranging them in a perfect circle, her movements methodical and silent. She was tiny for 5. Delicate, with a heart-shaped face and the biggest, saddest eyes Bryn had ever seen. Minji, Mrs. Park said. This is Miss Holloway. She will be taking care of you now. The little girl didn't look up. Hello. No excitement. No curiosity. Just flat acknowledgement. Mrs. Park left them alone, and silence stretched between them like a living thing. Those are nice dolls, Bryn tried. Minji arranged the last doll in the circle. They don't talk back. Do you want them to? No. I like quiet. Bryn's heart squeezed. She'd seen this before, in the mirror, in other foster kids. The careful control. The walls. The expectation of disappointment. She sat down on the floor, cross-legged, making herself small and non-threatening. I'm Bryn. I like quiet too, sometimes. Minji glanced up, studying her with eyes too old for her face. You're going to leave, she said matter-of-factly. Everyone leaves. My mom left. My dad left. You'll leave too. Bryn's heart cracked right down the middle. Your dad left? He's here. But he's not really here. Minji's small shoulders lifted in a shrug too world-weary for a 5-year-old. He doesn't look at me. Bryn scooted closer, still giving the child space. I'm not going anywhere, baby girl. Not unless someone drags me out of here kicking and screaming. Minji looked skeptical. Promise? Promise. The others promised too. How many others have there been? 4. Since Mom died. Minji picked at a thread on her dress. None of them stayed more than 3 months. Bryn held out her pinky. Then I'll be the first. Pinky promise. Those are forever binding. Minji stared at the offered finger, then slowly extended her own tiny pinky. Forever binding, she repeated, as if testing the words. Their fingers linked and something shifted in the air between them. Want to see something cool? Bryn asked. She made a silly face, eyes crossed, cheeks puffed out, tongue sticking out sideways. It was stupid and childish, but Minji's eyes widened. And then, like a miracle, she giggled. A tiny sound, rusty from disuse, but real. It felt like winning the lottery. Over the following weeks, Bryn learned just how absent Taehyun Namgung really was. He left before Minji woke and returned after she slept. Some days, the little girl would stand at the window watching for his car, and Bryn would have to gently redirect her to dinner or bath time. A father who was there but never present. A daughter who loved him anyway. And Bryn, caught in between, wondering what kind of man could ignore something so precious. She met him exactly twice in 11 months. The first time, he walked through the kitchen while she was making Minji's lunch. Tall, with shoulders that filled his impeccable suit, he moved like someone who owned not just the house but the air around him. His face was all sharp angles and perfect symmetry, his eyes so dark they seemed to swallow light. He glanced at her, nodded once, and kept walking. He didn't ask her name. The second time was just 3 days before everything changed. Bryn was in the library with Min-ji, reading a story about a princess who saved herself. The little girl was curled against her side, completely relaxed in a way she never was with anyone else. When Bryn looked up, Taehyun was standing in the doorway, watching them. His expression was unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes when Min-ji laughed at a funny voice Bryn made for the dragon. "You're good with her," he said quietly. "Better than the others." Then he disappeared again, ghost-like, back into whatever shadows controlled his life. 3 days later, Bryn would be bleeding on New Orleans cobblestones, and that man, that ghost who couldn't look at his own daughter, would be cradling her face and calling her his wife. But she didn't know that yet. She didn't know that her ordinary Tuesday morning would end in gunfire. She didn't know that loving Min-ji would nearly cost her everything. And she definitely didn't know that Taehyun Namgung had been watching her for months, seeing far more than she realized. The ambulance raced through the French Quarter, sirens blaring so loud they drowned out everything else. Inside, paramedics rushed around Bryn, hooking her up to machines and shouting things at each other. Blood pressure's dropping. Need more fluids in that 4. Call ahead, tell them we've got multiple gunshot wounds. Taehyun sat in the corner, completely zoned out. The big, powerful man who ran half of New Orleans was hunched over, his fancy suit soaked with blood, just staring at Bryn's face like nothing else existed. Min-ji was pressed against his side, crying so hard her whole body shook. She wouldn't let go of her dad's hand, and he wouldn't let go of Bryn's. "Sir, we need some space to work," one of the paramedics tried. Taehyun didn't even look up. "Save her." The way he said it, it wasn't a request. It was an order. The paramedic just swallowed hard and went back to work. The machines kept beeping warnings. Bryn's breathing was so shallow you could barely see her chest move. When they hit a pothole, she made this tiny sound, half moan, half whimper, and Taehyun's grip on her hand got even tighter. "Is she gonna die?" Min-ji whispered. The paramedics looked at each other, not sure what to say. "No," Taehyun said firmly. "She's not." He'd never lied to his daughter before. He wasn't about to start now. Out the windows, life in New Orleans just kept going. People drinking, laughing, completely oblivious that someone was fighting for her life just feet away from them. Bryn's blood was everywhere, under Taehyun's nails, soaked into his clothes, smeared on his cheek where she'd touched him. "You remembered my name." Her last words kept playing on repeat in his head. Like him simply knowing her name was something special to her. Had he really been that blind? Had he really made her that invisible? His phone kept buzzing in his pocket. June calling from the car behind them. For the first time since, well, forever, Taehyun just ignored it. Whatever business it was, it could wait. The hospital erupted into chaos when they arrived. Doctors and nurses were already waiting, amazing what one phone call from Taehyun Namgung could do. 3 gunshot wounds, the paramedic reported as they wheeled Bryn through the doors. Shoulder, lower back near spine, and left side. Lost a ton of blood at the scene. They rushed her through some double doors. A nurse tried to stop Taehyun from following. "Sir, you can't." The look he gave her made her shut up real quick. "Daddy," Min-ji tugged his hand. "I'm scared." Reality hit him like a truck. His daughter, still covered in Bryn's blood, face streaked with tears, needed him. He couldn't follow Bryn. Not right now. "Come here, baby," he said softly, picking Min-ji up. She buried her face against his neck, still crying. "She jumped right in front of me," Min-ji whispered. "She saved me." "I know, baby. I know she did." A nicer nurse came over, smiling gently. "We've got a private waiting room for families." And maybe we can find some clean clothes for your little girl? Taehyun nodded and followed her to a small room with comfy chairs and a coffee machine. Another nurse brought some kid-sized scrubs for Minji to change into, but the little girl refused to let go of her dad. "I'll be right here," he promised. "Just on the other side of this door." She nodded and went to change. The second she was gone, June showed up, looking actually worried for once. "Boss." "What happened?" Taehyun's jaw clenched. "Someone tried to kill my daughter. And the nanny. Her name is Bryn," Taehyun snapped, surprising both of them. "And she took 3 bullets meant for Minji." June nodded. "Any idea who did it?" "Not yet. But I want everything: traffic cameras, witnesses, bullet casings. Find the car. Find the shooters. Find whoever gave the order. Already working on it. Looks like pros did this. Military types, not street thugs." Taehyun felt his blood run cold. They knew she'd be there. Yeah. They had to. Which means... Inside job, June finished. Someone close enough to know your daughter's schedule. The reality of it hit Taehyun hard. Someone he trusted had tried to kill his daughter. Someone with access to his home, his staff, his security details. "There's more," June said quietly. "The hit went through channels we watch. But the money disappeared through 3 different shell companies. So whoever did this knows how we track things. They know exactly how we operate, boss." Minji came back in clean clothes, her face washed but still puffy from crying. They stopped talking, but the truth hung in the air like a storm cloud. Someone Taehyun trusted wanted his daughter dead. And the woman who'd saved her was fighting for her life. The surgery lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of Minji falling asleep against his chest, completely exhausted. 6 hours of June bringing updates on the investigation. 6 hours of Taehyun just sitting there, staring at the door, waiting for news. He didn't eat. Didn't touch the coffee June brought. Didn't take any calls. For maybe the first time since his wife died, Taehyun put everything on hold. His organization could run itself for a few hours. Right now, all that mattered was the woman behind those surgery doors. Why did she do it? The question kept spinning in his head. She wasn't family. She wasn't being paid to die for his kid. She was just the nanny, the invisible woman who took care of Minji while he built his empire. But she'd jumped in front of bullets without even thinking about it. She's just a baby. Someone had to protect her. Her words. Her broken, blood-filled words as she was dying on those cobblestones. In 15 years of working for Taehyun, June had never seen him scared. Not when rivals attacked their shipments. Not when his own wife was dying. Not ever. But right now, sitting in that waiting room covered in Bryn's blood, the ghost of the Gulf looked absolutely terrified. Finally, at almost midnight, the doctor came out. Taehyun jumped to his feet. June took Minji, still sleeping, from his arms. "Mr. Namgung," the surgeon looked completely wiped out. "She's alive, but just barely. We got all 3 bullets out. The shoulder wound wasn't too bad. The one in her side hit her liver, but we fixed it." "And the third?" Taehyun asked, his voice tight. The doctor's face got real serious. "The one near her spine is tricky. There's swelling around her spinal cord. We won't know if there's permanent damage until the swelling goes down." "Meaning?" "She might not walk again. Best case, she gets full movement back. Worst case, paralyzed from the waist down. We just don't know yet." Taehyun took that in. "But she'll live?" "The next 3 days are critical. She lost a lot of blood. Her body's been through hell. But yeah, I think she'll make it." The breath Taehyun let out was like he'd been holding it for 6 straight hours. His knees actually went weak for a second. I want her in the best private room you've got. Round-the-clock nurses. Whatever she needs. Of course. But sir, we couldn't find any insurance for her. The costs will be not an issue. Taehyun's tone shut that conversation down real quick. When can I see her? She's in recovery now. Once she's stable, we'll move her to a private room. You can see her then, but she won't be awake. We're keeping her sedated to help her heal. Taehyun just nodded. I'll wait. It was 3 a.m. when they finally let him see her. Min-ji had gone home with Mrs. Park, but only after making her dad promise 1,000,000 times that Bryn would be okay. The private room was big and quiet, just the soft beeping of machines in the background. Bryn looked so small in that hospital bed, all wrapped in bandages, tubes running from her arms, oxygen tube in her nose. Her skin looked ashy and pale from losing so much blood. But she was breathing. She was alive. Taehyun sat in the chair next to her bed and just looked at her. It hit him hard that he'd barely even looked at her before today. She'd just been there. The woman who took care of his daughter. The one who moved quietly through his house. The person Min-ji talked about constantly but he never really saw. Now he couldn't take his eyes off her. She was beautiful. Not like the polished, perfect women who usually surrounded him. Beautiful in a real way, her face peaceful despite everything, her hands rough from hard work, her short braids matted with dried blood. He found himself holding her hand without even realizing he'd reached for it. Her fingers were cool and smaller than his. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the best sound he'd ever heard. June came in quietly, holding a tablet. Got that background check you wanted, boss. Taehyun took the tablet but didn't look at it yet. Just tell me. Her name's Bryn Amara Holloway, 26, born in Memphis. Went into foster care at 7 when her mom OD'd. Dad unknown. Bounced between 8 different homes until she was 16, when her grandmother got custody. June scrolled through more info. Grandmother, Elaine Holloway, 78, is in hospice in Memphis. Terminal cancer. Bryn's been sending most of her pay to cover the medical bills. She's got a community college degree in childcare. Worked as a waitress at a gas station and at a daycare before she answered our job posting. Any record? Clean as a whistle. Not even a parking ticket. Taehyun looked at the woman in the bed. Foster care. Dying grandmother. Jobs that paid garbage. A life of just trying to survive. And still, she jumped in front of bullets for a kid who wasn't even hers. She has nobody, he said quietly. No family except a dying grandmother. No money. No protection. No, sir. She's a witness now. Whoever ordered this knows she survived. The second she's alone, she's a target. June shifted uncomfortably. We can give her security. Keep her safe until... Until what? Taehyun didn't look away from Bryn's face. Until we eliminate the threat? And if we don't? She stays a target. Forever. What are you thinking, boss? Taehyun was quiet for a long time, his thumb making little circles on Bryn's palm. In our world, family is protected. Family is untouchable. His voice was soft but sure. She took 3 bullets for my daughter. That's not employee loyalty. That's blood. June's face changed as he started to realize where this was going. Sir, you can't mean. Call Chen. I need marriage papers. Now. Marriage? June almost choked. Boss, with all due respect, you can't marry an unconscious woman. That's... Can't I? Taehyun's voice went cold. I'll do whatever I have to do to keep her safe. The second she becomes Mrs. Namgung, she's untouchable. Nobody moves against my family without starting a war with our entire organization. June stared at his boss, trying to figure out if this was grief, guilt, or something else completely. The council will never accept this. A nanny. An outsider. The council will accept whatever I tell them to accept. Taehyun stood up, suddenly filling the whole room with his presence. She saved my daughter, my heir, the future of our family. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me personally. The threat was crystal clear. June had heard Taehyun make those quiet threats before. They usually ended with bodies in the river. I'll call Chen, he said finally. Chen the lawyer showed up at 4:30 a.m., looking like he'd just rolled out of bed but carrying all the papers they needed. Judge Williams, who owed Taehyun for keeping his son out of jail, arrived at 5:15 a.m. to do the ceremony. The whole situation was crazy, marrying an unconscious woman, but nobody was about to say no to the ghost of the Gulf. Is this even legal? The judge asked nervously. Emergency proxy marriage. Legal in Louisiana in extreme circumstances. Chen pointed to some fine print. Her thumbprint works as signature. You, June, and the doctor will witness. The ceremony itself was surreal. Taehyun stood next to the hospital bed in a fresh suit June had brought him. He'd refused to do this in blood-stained clothes. If he was going to marry someone, even like this, he was going to do it right. He held Bryn's left hand gently while the judge said the vows. When it came time for her answers, the judge carefully pressed her thumb to an ink pad, then to the signature line on the marriage certificate. By the power vested in me by the state of Louisiana, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The words just hung there in the air of that hospital room, with nothing but beeping machines as witnesses. Taehyun looked at his new wife. This woman he barely knew. This stranger who'd suddenly become the most important person in his world because of a few bloody seconds. He leaned down and gently kissed her forehead. A kiss that was both gentle and a promise. You're safe now, he whispered against her skin. I swear. You're safe now. Bryn first noticed the beeping. Steady, annoying, like a tiny robot that wouldn't shut up. Then came the smell, that weird hospital mix of cleaning chemicals and something else she couldn't name. Her body felt wrong. Heavy, like someone had replaced her blood with concrete. And there was pain, a dull throb in her shoulder, a sharper ache in her side, and something weird in her back that didn't feel like normal pain. She tried to open her eyes, but her eyelids refused to cooperate. Bryn? A voice cut through the fog. Low, male, worried. Can you hear me? She knew that voice, didn't she? From somewhere important. Bryn, if you can hear me, try to open your eyes. She fought harder against the heaviness. Something about that voice made her want to respond, even though her brain felt like mush. Her eyes finally cracked open, just a little. The light stabbed into her brain like tiny knives, and she immediately squeezed them shut again. Dim the lights, the voice commanded someone else. She tried again. This time, the room was darker, and she could make out blurry shapes. A figure sitting beside her. Machines with blinking lights. A window with evening sunlight streaming through. There you are. The voice sounded relieved. Take it slow. Her vision gradually cleared, and she found herself looking at Taehyun Namgung. He was sitting right next to her bed, leaning forward, his usually perfect hair slightly messy. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Wait. Why was he here? Why was she here? What had? Memory crashed into her like a truck. The cafe. The black SUV. The bullets. Minji. The word came out as a croak, her throat dry and scratchy. She's fine. Taehyun's hand covered hers. Not a scratch on her. Because of you. Relief flooded through her, so powerful it made her dizzy. Thank God. Here. He held a cup of water with a straw to her lips. Small sips. The water felt like heaven on her parched throat. As her head cleared a bit more, questions started piling up. What happened? How long have I been? 3 days. Taehyun set the cup down. You've been unconscious for 3 days. You were shot 3 times. The doctors removed all the bullets, but there was a lot of damage. You lost a tremendous amount of blood. 3 days. 3 bullets. She remembered the pain, remembered throwing herself over Minji, remembered Taehyun appearing out of nowhere. Am I going to be okay? Something flickered across his face. The doctors think so. The bullet in your shoulder did the least damage. The one in your side hit your liver, but they repaired it. The 3rd bullet. He hesitated. The 3rd bullet landed near your spine. There's swelling. They won't know if there's permanent damage until it goes down. Permanent damage? Her voice shook. You mean I might not walk again, he finished quietly. It's a possibility. But the doctors are optimistic. Bryn tried to process this. She might be paralyzed. She might never walk again. All because she jumped in front of bullets meant for. Where's Minji now? Can I see her? She's at home with Mrs. Park. She's been here every day, but I finally convinced her to get some real sleep. She'll be ecstatic that you're awake. His expression softened. She's been drawing you pictures. Dozens of them. Bryn tried to smile, but something felt off. There was a tension in Taehyun she'd never seen before. Like he was bracing for something. Bryn, he said, his voice suddenly serious. I need to tell you something, and I need you to try to stay calm while I explain. A chill ran through her. What is it? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, exactly. But I did something while you were unconscious. Something you might not understand at first. She tried to sit up a bit, wincing at the pain that shot through her back. That's when she felt it, something on her left hand that hadn't been there before. She lifted her hand and stared at the platinum band with a single diamond that glittered even in the dim light. What is this? But even as she asked, a sick feeling was spreading through her stomach. Taehyun met her gaze directly. You're my wife, Bryn. We were married 2 days ago while you were unconscious. The room seemed to tilt sideways. The beeping from the heart monitor suddenly sped up, matching her racing pulse. You what? Her voice came out as a whisper, then rose sharply. You married me? While I was unconscious? A nurse rushed in, alarmed by the monitor, but Taehyun waved her away with a sharp gesture. We're fine. Just give us a moment. We are not fine. Bryn tried to yell, but it came out weaker than she wanted. You can't just, this has to be illegal. You can't marry someone who can't consent. Emergency proxy marriage. Legal in Louisiana under certain circumstances. His voice was calm, matter-of-fact. Your thumbprint served as signature. A judge and 3 witnesses were present. My thumbprint? You used my thumbprint? She was shaking now, fury and disbelief battling for control. This is insane. This is kidnapping or something. It's protection, Taehyun said firmly. The people who shot you, they weren't random criminals. They were hired professionals sent to kill my daughter. But they failed, and you're a witness. You saw the vehicle. You could identify them. So the moment you're vulnerable, the moment you're out of this hospital and on your own, they'll come for you. His eyes hardened. In my world, Bryn, family is untouchable. Family is protected at all costs. The moment you became Mrs. Namgung, you became protected by every resource, every connection, every threat that comes with that name. No one in New Orleans will touch you now. I didn't consent to this. No. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or fear. You were busy dying. Dying because you saved my daughter. That creates a debt in my world that can't be repaid with money or gratitude. It requires elevation. Bryn's head was spinning, trying to process the insanity of what he'd done. So what am I now? Your prisoner. Your obligation. You're my wife. The way he said it, with absolute certainty, made something flutter in her chest that she absolutely did not want to acknowledge. And yes, you're my obligation. But you're also Minji's mother now. She hasn't left your side since the attack. She calls you her angel. Tears burned in Bryn's eyes. That's not fair. You can't use her against me. I'm not using her. I'm telling you the truth. Taehyun leaned closer. I know this isn't what you wanted. I know you feel trapped. But I'm giving you a choice now, Bryn. You can fight this. You can be angry. Or you can accept that your life changed the moment you threw yourself in front of those bullets. That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. It's reality. His voice gentled slightly. I know your life hasn't been easy. I know about the foster homes. I know about your grandmother's medical bills. I know you've been fighting alone for a very long time. She stared at him, stunned. You investigated me? Of course I did. I needed to understand who you were. Why someone would take bullets for a child who wasn't theirs. Because it was the right thing to do. Bryn's voice broke. Not because I wanted anything from you. Not because I wanted to be trapped in some crazy mob marriage. Taehyun's jaw tightened. I'm trying to keep you alive. The people who did this, the people who tried to kill my daughter, they're still out there. They know you survived. They know you're a witness. So give me security. Give me protection. You didn't have to. It wouldn't be enough. He cut her off. Not in this world. Not with enemies this powerful. They'd find a way. But no one touches a Namgung without declaring war on our entire organization. Bryn was about to argue more when the door burst open. Minji flew into the room, breaking away from Mrs. Park, who was trying to hold her back. Bryn. You're awake. The little girl's face was radiant with joy, her eyes huge. Daddy said you'd wake up soon. He promised. Minji rushed to the bedside, then stopped, suddenly unsure, looking at all the tubes and bandages. It's okay, baby girl, Bryn said automatically. You can come closer. Just be gentle. Minji carefully climbed onto the chair Taehyun vacated for her, her little face so serious as she studied Bryn. Does it hurt? Where the bad men shot you? A little, Bryn admitted. But the doctors gave me medicine to help. You saved me. Minji's voice was filled with wonder. You jumped right in front of me. Like a superhero. I just didn't want you to get hurt. Minji's eyes filled with tears. Daddy said you almost died. But I didn't. I'm right here. Daddy said something else too. Minji looked up at her father, then back at Bryn, her expression suddenly hopeful and terrified at the same time. He said you're my mommy now. Really and truly. Is that true? The question hit Bryn like another bullet. She looked at Minji's hopeful face, then at Taehyun, who was watching them both with an unreadable expression. This was emotional manipulation, pure and simple. Taehyun knew exactly what he was doing, bringing Minji in at this moment. He knew Bryn couldn't crush that child's hope. But looking at Minji, this little girl she'd grown to love over 11 months of bedtime stories and hair braiding and nightmare comforting, Bryn realized the manipulation worked both ways. Because Minji needed her. And Bryn needed Minji too. Yes, she heard herself say, the word barely a whisper. Really and truly. Minji's face lit up like Christmas morning. She carefully leaned forward and placed the gentlest kiss on Bryn's cheek. "I knew it," she whispered. "I prayed every night for a mommy. And then they sent you." Over the child's head, Bryn met Taehyun's gaze. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes looked almost like relief. Or maybe gratitude. Or maybe something more complicated that neither of them was ready to name. She was trapped. Completely and utterly trapped by circumstance, by logic she couldn't argue with, by a child's love and a debt she hadn't asked for but couldn't deny. Mrs. Park gently intervened. "Miss Minji, your mother needs rest. We should let her sleep now. But I just found her. And she'll be right here when you come back tomorrow," Mrs. Park promised. "With more strength if she gets proper rest." Minji reluctantly agreed, giving Bryn one more careful hug before letting Mrs. Park lead her out. At the door, she turned back. "I love you, Mommy." The door closed behind them, leaving Bryn and Taehyun alone again. "That wasn't fair," she said quietly. "No," he agreed. "It wasn't. But it was true." Bryn turned her face away, unwilling to let him see the tears gathering in her eyes. "I want to sleep now. We'll talk more tomorrow." His voice was soft, almost gentle. "But Bryn? Thank you. For what you did for Minji. And for what you just did." She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. After a moment, she heard him leave, the door clicking shut behind him. Alone, Bryn finally let the tears fall. She stared at the ring on her finger, this foreign object that now marked her as someone else's. As belonging to a world she hadn't chosen. But being Mrs. Namgung meant more than just a ring and a piece of paper. It meant entering a world of danger, politics, and people who would test her in ways she couldn't imagine. And the first test was coming in just 3 days, when she'd have to face the most powerful families in New Orleans and prove she deserved to stand beside the ghost of the Gulf. Bryn had thought the private hospital suite was luxurious. She'd been wrong. The east wing of the Namgung mansion made the hospital look like a cheap motel. Her bedroom alone was bigger than her entire apartment back in Memphis. The bathroom had a tub you could practically swim in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens she'd only ever seen while walking Minji to the play area. It was all a bit much. "These are my rooms?" she asked Mrs. Park, who was showing her around a week after her discharge. "Yes, Mrs. Namgung. The east wing is yours." Mrs. Namgung. The name still felt wrong on her ears. Like someone else's clothes that didn't quite fit. She moved carefully, the physical therapist's instructions fresh in her mind. The bullet near her spine hadn't caused permanent damage, a miracle, the doctor said, but walking was still painful. The shoulder wound pulled whenever she lifted her arm. The side injury ached when she laughed, which hadn't been much of a problem lately. Minji was the only bright spot in this whole mess. The little girl had barely left Bryn's side since she came home, reading to her, bringing her drawings, curling up next to her for afternoon naps. It was almost enough to make Bryn forget that she was essentially a prisoner in a gilded cage. Almost. Taehyun had been complicated. Distant but attentive. Formal but concerned. He checked on her daily, asked about her pain levels, made sure she had everything she needed. But he never mentioned the argument in the hospital. Never apologized for marrying her without consent. Never acknowledged the massive bomb he dropped on her life. Instead, he focused on business. Security updates. Investigation progress. The search for whoever had ordered the hit on Minji. It was easier that way. For both of them. But today, Mrs. Park had a different agenda. "The dinner is tomorrow night," the housekeeper said, opening the massive walk-in closet that was now filled with clothes in Bryn's size. "We need to select your outfit and prepare you." "The dinner?" Bryn lowered herself carefully onto a cushioned bench. "Mr. Namgung didn't tell you?" Mrs. Park's eyebrows rose. He's introducing you to his inner circle. The important families. It's tradition when there's a new marriage. The pause before marriage said everything. Great, Bryn muttered. A room full of people judging me. Yes, Mrs. Park agreed bluntly. They will judge you. Harshly. Which is why we must prepare you. Over the next hour, Mrs. Park pulled out dress after dress while explaining exactly who would be at this dinner. The names blurred together, Mr. Kim who controlled the docks, Elder Choi who handled political connections, the Lee brothers with their shipping empire. And of course, the Kangs, Mrs. Park added, her voice dropping slightly as she held up an emerald green dress against Bryn. This color suits you. The Kangs? Bryn caught the shift in Mrs. Park's tone. The housekeeper hesitated. Chairman Kang is Mr. Namgung's biggest rival. Also his closest ally, when necessary. Their territories border each other. Their businesses overlap. Their families have been connected for generations. Connected how? Mrs. Park placed the green dress on a separate rack. Chairman Kang has a daughter. Soo-yun. She's been waiting for Mr. Namgung for several years now. Waiting? There was an understanding between the families. After Mrs. Namgung passed, once a suitable mourning period had ended, Tae-hyun would marry Soo-yun. It would have united the two strongest families in New Orleans. Bryn felt her stomach drop. But he didn't. No. He refused. Said he would not be told who to marry. And now. Mrs. Park gestured vaguely at Bryn. Now I'm in the way. Mrs. Park's eyes met hers directly. Soo-yun is beautiful, connected, and dangerous, she said quietly while helping Bryn into the emerald dress. She's been waiting for Mr. Namgung to choose her for 5 years. And now you, a woman no one saw coming, have taken her place. She sounds like she wants me dead. She wants you destroyed. Death would be too easy. Mrs. Park adjusted the dress, which fit Bryn perfectly. She will try to humiliate you tomorrow. Make you look like the outsider you are. Break you in front of everyone. Bryn stared at her reflection in the floor-length mirror. The woman looking back at her was a stranger, elegant, polished, draped in expensive fabric. But underneath was still the same foster kid from Memphis who'd learned to fight her own battles. Let her try. Okay, real talk for a second. If you've made it this far, you're invested, and I appreciate you. But this dinner scene coming up. It's one of the most intense parts of this story. Soo-yun is about to try everything to tear Bryn apart, and what happens next is going to shock you. So if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single comment, and your support helps me keep bringing you stories like this. Let us continue. Copper Finch Kitchen was the kind of restaurant Bryn would have walked past 100 times without ever thinking she could go inside. Crystal chandeliers. White tablecloths. Staff that moved like silent shadows. The kind of place with no prices on the menu because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. Tonight, they had closed the entire restaurant for Tae-hyun's dinner party. Bryn sat in the back of the black SUV, not the same one that had brought her to New Orleans. She'd checked, her hands fidgeting with the small clutch purse Mrs. Park had insisted she carry. The emerald dress made her feel both beautiful and completely out of place. You look stunning, Tae-hyun said from beside her, his eyes briefly meeting hers before returning to the road. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit that made him look even more intimidating than usual. His only concession to color was his emerald tie, matched to her dress. A united front. Is that what matters tonight? How I look? Her nerves made the question sharper than she'd intended. No. His voice was calm. What matters is that you're alive. That Minji is alive. Everything else is secondary. Easy for you to say. You're not the one being thrown to the wolves. You're not alone in there. His hand covered hers, warm and steady. I'll be right beside you. Why are we even doing this? Why not just, I don't know, send a wedding announcement? Because in our world, respect is everything. Hiding you away would send a message that I'm ashamed. That our marriage is something to be kept secret. His jaw tightened. I'm not ashamed of you, Bryn. But you barely know me. I know you took 3 bullets for my daughter. That tells me everything important about who you are. They pulled up to the restaurant. Taehyun squeezed her hand once before letting go. Just be yourself. That's the woman who survived foster care, who sends money home to her grandmother, who protects children who aren't hers. That's the woman I'm proud to introduce tonight. As they stepped out of the car, Bryn felt a strange flutter in her chest. Not quite fear. Not quite hope. Something in between. The moment they entered, the room went silent. 8 couples were already seated around a massive table, all eyes turning to assess the new arrivals. Bryn could feel the judgment like a physical weight. The women, uniformly beautiful in expensive dresses, sized her up with expert precision. The men, ranging from Taehyun's age to much older, evaluated her like a new acquisition. And at the far end, in a blood-red dress that hugged her perfect figure, sat a woman who could only be Soo-Yeon Kang. She was breathtaking, porcelain skin, full lips, eyes that could cut glass. Those eyes fixed on Bryn with undisguised hatred. Taehyun's hand settled on the small of Bryn's back, warm and steady through the fabric of her dress. He guided her to the head of the table with a confidence that seemed to fill the room. Thank you all for coming tonight, he said, his voice carrying easily. I'd like to introduce my wife, Bryn Namgung. Wife. Not new wife. Not recent wife. Just wife. As if she'd always been there. Some of you know the circumstances of our marriage, he continued as he held Bryn's chair for her. For those who don't, she saved my daughter's life, taking 3 bullets meant for Min-ji. She has earned her place in this family through blood and sacrifice. The word sacrifice hung in the air. In their world, it carried weight. As Taehyun sat beside her, the conversation gradually resumed, though Bryn could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface. Waiters appeared with wine and appetizers. Bryn followed Taehyun's lead, trying to remember which fork to use when. It was an older man who fired the first shot. Mr. Kim, if she remembered Mrs. Park's briefing correctly. Controls the docks. Connected to Taehyun through his first wife. Mrs. Namgung, he said, emphasizing her title in a way that made it clear he didn't think she deserved it. What an unexpected addition to our family. Tell us, how does a woman from Memphis come to work as a nanny in New Orleans? It seems an unusual career path. The question was designed to humiliate her. To remind everyone of her former status as the help. Bryn felt Taehyun tense beside her, ready to intervene, but she placed a hand on his knee under the table. This was her fight. I needed a fresh start, she said simply, meeting Kim's gaze. My grandmother was sick. The medical bills were piling up. The job with the Namgung family offered good pay and a chance to care for a child who needed someone. She paused. I found that life rarely follows the paths we expect, Mr. Kim. Sometimes we end up exactly where we're supposed to be, even if we take unusual routes to get there. Kim's eyebrows rose slightly, perhaps surprised by her composure. How fortunate for you, said a woman 2 seats down, Mrs. Lee, Bryn thought. To find yourself so suddenly elevated. Some might call it a fairy tale. I wouldn't. Bryn touched her shoulder, where the pain still lingered. Fairy tales don't usually involve getting shot 3 times. A few chuckles around the table. Taehyun's hand found hers under the table and squeezed gently. I wonder, Soo-Yeon spoke for the first time, her voice musical and poisonous, if you truly understand the world you've entered, Mrs. Namgung. Our community has traditions, expectations, histories that go back generations. Her perfect smile never reached her eyes. It must be overwhelming for someone with your limited background. It is, Bryn admitted, surprising everyone with her honesty. There's a lot I don't understand yet. But I'm learning. And some things are universal: family, loyalty, protection. Those I understand perfectly. Soo-yun's smile tightened. How admirable. Though one might wonder if there wasn't an easier way to join the family. Taking bullets seems rather extreme when other women manage it through more traditional methods. The table went deadly quiet. The attack was direct now. Some might call it opportunistic, Soo-yun continued, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Being shot in just the right way, at just the right time, to secure a position many women have waited years for. Bryn felt rather than saw Taehyun's anger building beside her. His entire body had gone rigid. But this wasn't his battle to fight. You're right, Bryn said calmly, setting her fork down. I absolutely planned to get shot 3 times and nearly die as a career advancement strategy. She let her sarcasm land, then hardened her voice. I didn't choose those bullets. I chose to protect a child. If that makes me opportunistic, then I'll wear that label proudly. She leaned forward slightly. The real question, Soo-yun, is why a woman who's been waiting for 5 years still doesn't have what she wants. Maybe it's not about opportunity. Maybe it's about worth. Several of the men at the table suddenly became very interested in their wine glasses. One of the younger ones coughed to cover what might have been a laugh. Soo-yun's face flushed with rage, her composure cracking. You forget yourself. You may wear his ring, but you know nothing of our world, our traditions. You're an outsider playing dress-up in clothes you don't understand. You're right, Bryn agreed. I am an outsider. Which means I see things people inside sometimes miss. She glanced around the table. Like how the attack on Min-ji was too well coordinated to be random. Whoever ordered it knew exactly when and where she'd be. Knew exactly how to get past security. The mood shifted instantly. Business had entered the conversation, and everyone sat straighter. That's quite an accusation, said an older man at Soo-yun's end of the table, Chairman Kong, Bryn realized. Soo-yun's father. It's not an accusation, Taehyun cut in smoothly. It's a fact. We have evidence. Whoever tried to kill my daughter is sitting at this table, or is connected to someone who is. The tension in the room ratcheted up to near breaking point. Glances were exchanged. Hands tightened around utensils. Do you love him? Soo-yun suddenly demanded, desperation cracking through her polished facade. Or is this purely transaction? The question hung in the air. Everyone waited for Bryn's answer. She could lie. Could pretend this was a love match. Could play the game. Instead, she looked at Taehyun. Their eyes met across the charged silence. I'm learning to, she said softly. And I think he's learning too. That's more than many marriages built on arrangement can claim. I am. Taehyun's voice cut through the room. Learning to love her. It's unexpected and complicated and completely terrifying. But yes. I am. The table went silent again, but it was a different kind of silence. Thoughtful. Considering. Chairman Kong broke it with a low chuckle. Well, I suppose that settles the question of whether this marriage is real. He raised his glass. To the Namgungs. May their unconventional union prove stronger than our traditional ones. The toast was made. Glasses clinked. The dinner continued with superficial pleasantries, but underneath, Bryn could feel that something had shifted. She'd passed some kind of test. After dessert, as people began to say their goodbyes, Soo-yun cornered Bryn near the restrooms. You think you've won? She hissed, her perfect face twisted with fury. You think one dinner, one pretty speech makes you belong here? I don't need to belong here, Bryn said calmly. I just need to belong with him and Min-ji. He doesn't love you. Soo-yeon stepped closer. This is guilt and obligation wrapped in pretty words. When the novelty wears off, when he remembers what real passion feels like, he'll come back to me. He always does. If you're so confident, why do you sound so desperate? Soo-yeon's composure shattered for a moment, raw hurt flashing across her beautiful features. You don't know him, she whispered fiercely. You don't know what he needs, what drives him, what keeps him awake at night. I do. And when this little experiment fails, I'll still be here. I'll always be here. Taehyun appeared at Brin's side, his hands sliding around her waist in a gesture that was both protective and possessive. Soo-yeon, his voice was ice, your father is looking for you. Soo-yeon's face transformed instantly, all vulnerability replaced by practiced charm. We were just getting acquainted. Girl talk. She smiled at Brin. I'm sure we'll see much more of each other. As she walked away, Brin felt Taehyun's arm tighten around her waist. What did she say to you? Nothing I couldn't handle. Brin watched Soo-yeon's retreating figure. She loves you. Or thinks she does. She loves what I represent. Power. Position. The fulfillment of what she was promised. His voice softened. You were incredible tonight. Better than I could have hoped. The drive home was quiet, both of them lost in thought. Brin stared out the window at the New Orleans night, thinking about everything that had happened. But neither of them saw the car that pulled out to follow them as they left the restaurant. Neither of them noticed the phone call Soo-yeon made the moment she reached her own vehicle. And neither of them realized that the person who had ordered the attack on Min-ji was closer than they thought, and was about to make their next move. The night after the dinner, Brin couldn't sleep. Her wounds ached, her mind raced with the faces of everyone at that table, and questions kept piling up. Who would want Min-ji dead? Who had access to the family schedules? Who among those polished, powerful people had tried to kill a 5-year-old girl? Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and decided to get some water. The mansion was eerily quiet as she made her way through the hallway she'd once cleaned. Passing Taehyun's study, she noticed the light was still on, the door cracked open. She hesitated, then knocked softly. Come in, Taehyun called. He was sitting behind his desk, suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, surrounded by papers and a laptop showing security footage. He looked up, surprised to see her. You should be resting. So should you, Brin said. But I guess we're both bad at following doctor's orders. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Can't sleep? Too many questions. She nodded at the mess on his desk. Looks like you're having the same problem. Trying to figure out who wants my daughter dead. He ran a hand through his usually perfect hair, leaving it slightly messy. It made him look more human somehow. Not going well. Brin moved closer, glancing at the footage on his laptop. What is this? Security feed from the day of the shooting. We've been over it 100 times, but there has to be something we missed. She leaned over his shoulder, studying the screen. It showed the cafe where they'd been sitting, filmed from across the street. She watched her past self sharing beignet with Min-ji, both of them laughing. Can I see it from the beginning? The whole day? Taehyun looked at her for a moment, then nodded. He rewound the footage, starting from early morning. For the next hour, they reviewed everything together. The security team leaving the mansion. The route to the cafe. The surrounding streets. The black SUV appearing and disappearing. Wait, Brin said suddenly. Go back. There. She pointed at a figure in the background of the feed. What am I looking at? That man in the gray jacket. He walks by the cafe at 10:30, then again at 11:45, and one more time at 1:15. Just before the shooting. Taehyun zoomed in. Could be coincidence. It's a busy street. Yeah, but look at his hand each time. He's on his phone, but he's taking pictures. Of us. Of the security position. Bryn tapped the screen. That's not random. That's surveillance. Taehyun stared at the footage, then at her. You're right. He immediately picked up his phone, sending the images to June. You're not just brave, he said, studying her with new interest. You think strategically. Several moves ahead. Bryn shrugged. My grandmother used to say survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about seeing the danger before it sees you. She sounds wise. She is. Bryn's voice softened. She's why I'm here. Why I took this job. Her medical bills are paid. When she looked up sharply, he continued. All of them. And her care has been upgraded. Best facility in Memphis. Taehyun. You're my wife. His voice was matter-of-fact. Your family is my family now. Bryn didn't know what to say. After a moment, she turned back to the footage. The guy in gray. He's a scout, not the shooter. But he's collecting intel for someone. Taehyun nodded. The question is who? They worked late into the night, side by side, piecing together fragments of a puzzle neither had enough pieces to complete. Over the next week, something shifted between them. It started with small things. Morning coffee together before Minji woke up. Family dinners where they'd sit and listen to Minji's chatter about her day. Taehyun asking Bryn questions about her life before New Orleans. Bryn asking him about his world, his business, his past. He taught her about his organization, the legitimate businesses, shipping, real estate, restaurants, and the less legitimate ones, protection, gambling, smuggling. She absorbed it all, asking smart questions that sometimes caught him off guard. You don't seem shocked, he said one night in his study as he explained a particularly complicated money laundering scheme. I grew up in foster care, she reminded him. Some of my foster dads were into stuff that would make your hair stand on end. Nothing much surprises me anymore. In return, she taught him things too. Like how to actually be present with Minji. How to talk to her. How to listen. She doesn't need perfect, Bryn told him one evening as they watched Minji play in the garden. She just needs you. Actually you, not the version that's always thinking about business. Taehyun had grown quiet at that. Later that night, he joined them for bedtime stories for the first time in years. The way Minji's face lit up when her father entered her room, Bryn would never forget it. Like Christmas and birthdays all at once. After tucking Minji in, they'd walked back down the hallway together. You avoid her, Bryn said quietly, watching Taehyun hesitate outside Minji's room. Your own daughter. Why? For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, barely audible, she has her mother's eyes. Her mother's smile. Every time I look at her, I see the woman I couldn't save. Hannah. Your wife. She died in my arms. Brain aneurysm. Nothing I could do. Nothing anyone could do. His voice cracked. I promised to protect her, and I couldn't. So I pulled away. From everything. Everyone. Including the little girl who needs you most. Including her. He finally met Bryn's gaze. Until you showed me what protecting really looks like. Not distance. Not walls. Presence. You're more of a parent to her in 11 months than I've been in years. Bryn reached out, hesitated, then gently squeezed his hand. It's not too late to change that. He nodded, his fingers curling around hers briefly before letting go. Each night after that, he read Minji a bedtime story. Each night, the little girl fell asleep a little happier. Each night, the shadows in Taehyun's eyes grew a little lighter. And each night, Bryn found herself thinking less about escape and more about staying. 2 weeks after the dinner, Bryn couldn't sleep again, but for different reasons. Her mind wasn't racing with fears or questions. It was humming with confusion about her feelings for the man who'd married her while she was unconscious. The same man who'd paid her grandmother's medical bills without being asked. Who'd moved heaven and earth to keep her safe. Who was slowly, painfully learning how to be a father again because she'd shown him the way. The same man who ran a criminal empire. Who had enemies willing to kill children. Who had married her without her consent. Everything about their situation was complicated. She slipped out of bed and wandered down to the gardens. The night was warm, heavy with the scent of magnolias and jasmine. The massive magnolia tree at the center of the garden seemed to glow in the moonlight, its waxy leaves reflecting the silver light. Couldn't sleep? Bryn turned to find Taehyun standing a few feet away, hands in the pockets of what looked like pajama pants. His hair was slightly mussed, his feet bare on the grass. Without his usual suit, he looked younger. More approachable. Too much on my mind, she admitted. Same. He moved to stand beside her, both of them looking up at the magnolia tree. I used to climb that when I was a kid. Drove my mother crazy. Bryn smiled, trying to picture a young Taehyun scrambling up the branches. I bet you were a handful. I was a nightmare, he agreed. Stubborn. Too smart for my own good. Always challenging the rules. And now you make the rules. Some of them. He glanced at her. Not all. Contrary to what you might think, I don't always get what I want. You got me, she said quietly. Whether I wanted it or not. His expression sobered. Yes. I did that. And I won't apologize for keeping you safe. But I will apologize for not giving you a choice. It was the first time he'd acknowledged it directly. The first crack in his certainty. What would you have done if I'd refused? If I'd said no the moment I woke up? If I'd demanded a divorce? I'd have fought you, he admitted. Tried to make you see reason. But eventually, if you truly wanted out, I'd have found another way to protect you. I'm not a monster, Bryn. I just... He paused. I couldn't lose anyone else. The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. What I said at the dinner, about learning to love you, Taehyun stood close, moonlight catching the sharp angles of his face. I wasn't performing for them. I know. Bryn's heart was pounding. Neither was I. This is complicated. Everything about us is complicated. I'm dangerous. My world is dangerous. Being with me puts a target on your back. Taehyun. She stepped closer. I already took 3 bullets. The target's already there. He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched her cheek. His fingers were warm against her skin. I never meant for any of this to happen, he said softly. I never meant to drag you into my world. I never meant to start feeling. Feeling what? She whispered. Things I haven't felt since Hannah died. Things I swore I'd never feel again. His thumb traced her jawline. You terrify me, Bryn Holloway. You make me want things I shouldn't want. Like what? Like this. When he kissed her, it felt inevitable. Gentle at first, questioning, giving her every opportunity to step back. When she didn't, when she pressed closer instead, something shifted between them that could never be undone. Under the magnolia tree, in the garden of a mansion that was now her home, Bryn Holloway kissed the man who had become her husband in the strangest way possible. His hands cradled her face like she was something precious. Her arms wrapped around his waist, feeling the solid warmth of him. The kiss deepened, became something hungry and real and completely overwhelming. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Bryn felt dizzy with conflicting emotions. I shouldn't want this, she whispered. After everything, the way it started, I shouldn't. I know. His forehead rested against hers. But here we are anyway. Here we are. For the first time since she was 16 years old, Bryn felt like she belonged somewhere. The sensation was terrifying and wonderful all at once. "We should go inside," Tae-hyun said quietly. "It's late." He took her hand, and they walked back to the house together, neither sure what would happen next but both certain that everything had changed. Neither of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows of the garden wall. Neither of them saw the phone camera capturing their kiss, or heard the soft voice making a call moments later. "They're getting too close," the voice said. "Move up the timeline. It has to be tonight." What they didn't know, couldn't know, was that their investigation had rattled the wrong cages. The traitor within Tae-hyun's organization had been content to wait, to plan, to bide their time. But Bryn Holloway was asking questions. Seeing patterns. Getting dangerously close to the truth. And the person who had ordered Minji's death wasn't about to let a former nanny from Memphis ruin everything they'd worked for. The morning after their kiss, Bryn couldn't stop thinking about Tae-hyun. The feel of his lips against hers. The way his hands had cradled her face. The vulnerability in his eyes when they'd pulled apart. But she also couldn't stop thinking about Minji's attackers. Someone had tried to kill that little girl. Someone was still out there. And Bryn was determined to find them. While Tae-hyun was in meetings downtown, Bryn set up shop in his study. She'd asked June to bring her all the staff schedules from the past 3 months, security logs, visitor records, anything that might show a pattern. "He won't like you doing this alone," June had warned. "Then he shouldn't have married someone so stubborn," she'd replied. Now she sat cross-legged on the floor, sitting in chairs was still uncomfortable with her healing wounds, surrounded by papers, a yellow legal pad filled with notes beside her. She'd been at it for hours, and her eyes were starting to blur. But then she saw it. A pattern in the staff rotation. Subtle changes to security schedules. Small adjustments to Minji's routine on specific days. Individually, none of them meant anything. Together, they painted a clear picture. Someone had been manipulating the household from the inside. Someone with access to everything. Someone who could make changes without raising suspicion. Bryn flipped through the schedules for the day of the shooting. Who had known they would be at that cafe? Who had adjusted the security detail? Who had suggested the outing in the first place? Her blood ran cold as a name emerged. Someone she saw every day. Someone she trusted. Someone who had been caring for her since she got home from the hospital. Mrs. Park. "No way," Bryn whispered. "That can't be right." But the evidence was there in black and white. Mrs. Park had rearranged the security schedule that day. Mrs. Park had suggested the cafe outing to Minji, knowing the child would beg to go. Mrs. Park had access to every part of the household, every schedule, every security detail. Bryn gathered the papers with shaking hands. She needed to find Tae-hyun. Needed to show him what she'd found. She was halfway to the door when she heard footsteps in the hallway. Mrs. Park's voice, talking on the phone in rapid Korean. Bryn froze, her heart pounding. "Tonight. It has to be tonight." Mrs. Park switched to English. "Yes, I understand. No mistakes this time." Bryn backed away from the door. She needed to think. If Mrs. Park was the traitor, confronting her directly was dangerous. But she also couldn't let her know that she'd been discovered. The footsteps continued past the study. Bryn waited until they faded, then slipped out and headed for Minji's room. She needed to keep the little girl close until Tae-hyun got home. Minji was napping when Bryn entered her room. She looked so peaceful, her dark lashes fanned against her cheeks, one arm wrapped around the teddy bear Bryn had bought her months ago. Bryn sat on the edge of the bed, mind racing. She needed to call Tae-hyun, but her phone was in her room. She couldn't leave Minji alone, but she couldn't carry the sleeping child through the house without raising suspicion either. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "Mrs. Namgung?" Mrs. Park's voice. Is everything alright? You missed lunch. Bryn took a deep breath, forcing her voice to sound normal. We're fine, Mrs. Park. Minji was tired, so I'm letting her nap. I see. Would you like me to bring you something to eat? No, thank you. We'll come down when she wakes up. Silence. Then, very well. Bryn listened to the footsteps retreat, then exhaled slowly. Her palms were sweating. She needed to stay calm. Think logically. What would Taehyun do? He'd gather information. He'd confirm his suspicions before acting. With Minji still sleeping, Bryn crept to the bedroom door and eased it open a crack. The hallway was empty. She slipped out and moved silently toward Mrs. Park's quarters on the first floor. If there was evidence, that's where it would be. The house was quiet. Most of the staff were occupied with afternoon duties. Bryn made it to Mrs. Park's door without being seen. She tried the handle, locked, of course. Looking for something? Bryn jumped and spun around. Mrs. Park stood at the end of the hallway, her face expressionless. I wanted to ask you about dinner tonight, Bryn improvised. Mrs. Park's eyes narrowed slightly. You could have used the house phone. I was stretching my legs. Doctor's orders, remember? Bryn forced a smile. How's salmon sound for dinner? Minji loves it. Salmon would be fine. Mrs. Park wasn't moving from her position. Is there anything else you need, Mrs. Namgung? The way she said, Mrs. Namgung, with that slight emphasis, made Bryn's skin crawl. No, that's all. I should get back to Minji. Bryn walked past Mrs. Park, keeping her face carefully neutral. She could feel the older woman's eyes boring into her back the entire way. When she returned to Minji's room, the little girl was still sleeping. Bryn locked the door and sat down on the window seat, heart pounding. Mrs. Park knew. She had to know that Bryn suspected something. She looked around the room desperately. No phone. No way to contact Taehyun without leaving Minji alone. The bedroom connected to a small bathroom. Bryn went in and rummaged through the cabinet until she found what she needed, a disposable cup from when Minji had been sick last month. She pressed it against the wall separating Minji's room from the hallway and put her ear to the bottom. Old foster care trick. When you needed to know if the adults were coming. She could hear Mrs. Park talking to someone. The words were muffled, but she caught, packing my things, and, tonight. Packing. Mrs. Park was planning to run. Minji stirred on the bed, blinking sleepily. Bryn? What are you doing? Hey, sleepyhead. Bryn quickly hid the cup. Just checking something. How was your nap? Good. Minji sat up, rubbing her eyes. Can we play a game? Actually, I have a special game in mind. Bryn sat beside her. It's called Secret Mission. We need to be very quiet and follow special instructions. Think you can do that? Minji's eyes widened with excitement. Like spies? Exactly like spies. First mission, we need to get to my room without anyone seeing us. Then we need to call your dad. It's very important. Is something wrong? Bryn smoothed Minji's hair. No, baby girl. It's just part of the game. They made it to Bryn's room without being spotted. Bryn locked the door and pulled out her phone, dialing Taehyun. Straight to voicemail. Damn it, she muttered, then tried June. Mrs. Namgung? June answered on the second ring. June, I need to talk to Taehyun right away. It's urgent. He's in a meeting. I can. Pull him out. Now. Tell him it's about Mrs. Park and the shooting. Silence. Then, stay where you are. Don't talk to anyone. We'll be there in 20 minutes. Hurry. Bryn hung up and turned to find Minji watching her with worried eyes. "This isn't a game, is it?" the little girl asked quietly. Bryn knelt in front of her. "No, baby, it's not. But I need you to be brave for me, okay? Your dad is on his way home. We just need to wait here until he comes." "Is the bad lady going to hurt us?" Bryn's heart skipped. "What bad lady, Minji?" "Mrs. Park. I heard her talking on the phone last night. She said mean things about Daddy. And you." Minji's lip trembled. "I was scared to tell." "Oh, sweetie." Bryn pulled her into a hug. "You're doing the right thing telling me now. We're going to be okay. I promise." They waited, Bryn constantly checking her phone, Minji pressed against her side. 10 minutes passed. 15. A soft knock on the door made them both freeze. "Mrs. Namgung?" Mrs. Park's voice. "May I come in? There's a phone call for you." Bryn put her finger to her lips, signaling Minji to stay quiet. "I'm not feeling well," Bryn called back. "Can you take a message?" "It's your grandmother. From Memphis. She says it's urgent." Grandmother. The one person Bryn would open the door for. Except her grandmother was in hospice, barely conscious most days. She wouldn't be calling. "Tell her I'll call back," Bryn said. "I really don't feel well." Silence. Then a key turned in the lock. Bryn's blood ran cold. Mrs. Park had a master key. Of course she did. "Minji, hide in the bathroom," Bryn whispered frantically. "Lock the door. Don't come out until your dad or I tell you to." Minji nodded, eyes wide with fear, and ran to the bathroom. The lock clicked just as Mrs. Park opened the bedroom door. The housekeeper looked different. Her usual perfect posture was gone, replaced by a tension Bryn had never seen before. And in her hand was a small pistol. "Where is the child?" Mrs. Park asked calmly. Bryn stood her ground. "Safe from you." Mrs. Park sighed, as if disappointed. "I had hoped to do this cleanly. No witnesses. No mess." "Why?" Bryn asked, trying to keep her talking. "Trying to buy time. Why would you want to hurt Minji? You've been with this family for years." "I don't want to hurt anyone." Mrs. Park's hand trembled slightly. "I have no choice." "There's always a choice. Not when they have your son." Mrs. Park's composure cracked, showing raw pain beneath. "My June. My only child. They'll kill him if I don't do this." Understanding dawned on Bryn. "You're being forced. They have pictures. Videos of him tied up. They cut off his finger and sent it to me when I hesitated last time." Tears filled the older woman's eyes. "I'm sorry. I truly am. But a mother will do anything for her child." "Who's they?" Bryn asked, inching closer to the bedside table. There was a heavy lamp there. If she could just reach it. "Elder Moon. Working with the Kangs. They want Taehyun broken. Vulnerable. The perfect time to force him into an alliance through marriage." Mrs. Park's mouth twisted bitterly. "To Soo-yun, of course. By killing his daughter? How would that make him want to marry into their family? It wouldn't be immediate. First grief. Then comfort from an old friend. Then, when he's at his weakest, the business proposal that requires a marriage to seal it." Mrs. Park shook her head. "Politics. Always politics." Bryn's hand closed around the lamp base. "And now? What's happening tonight?" Another attempt. But this time, no mistakes. Mrs. Park's expression hardened. "I'm sorry. I truly liked you. And Minji." Her voice broke. That sweet child. But I can't let my son die. And I can't let you hurt Minji. Bryn lunged forward with the lamp. Mrs. Park fired, but the shot went wide as Bryn slammed into her. Both women crashed to the floor, the gun skittering away. Despite her healing wounds, Bryn fought with everything she had, pinning Mrs. Park down. Your son wouldn't want this. Bryn gasped, struggling to hold the older woman. You know he wouldn't. Mrs. Park went still. It doesn't matter what he would want. Only that he lives. The sound of breaking glass downstairs interrupted them. Shouts. Gunfire. They're here, Mrs. Park whispered, eyes wide with fear. The attack has started. Bryn scrambled for the gun, pointing it at Mrs. Park with shaking hands. How many? At least 10 men. Professional. They'll kill everyone. Including me, once I've served my purpose. Mrs. Park looked suddenly old, defeated. I never meant for it to go this far. More gunshots downstairs. Men shouting in Korean. The house security team fighting back. Minji, Bryn called, keeping the gun trained on Mrs. Park. Come out. Quickly. The bathroom door opened. Minji looked terrified, tears streaming down her face. It's okay, baby girl. Bryn tried to sound calmer than she felt. We need to get to the safe room. Do you remember where it is? The one your dad showed you? Minji nodded. Mrs. Park is going to help us get there safely. Aren't you, Mrs. Park? Bryn's voice hardened. The housekeeper looked between Bryn and Minji, then nodded slowly. Yes. I know where the attackers will enter. I can get you past them. Why should I trust you? Because I'm already dead, Mrs. Park said simply. If they find out I failed again, they'll kill June. My only hope now is Taehyun. If he can find my son before they realize I've betrayed them. Bryn made a split-second decision. Lead the way. But remember, I have the gun. The mansion was in chaos. Smoke filled the hallways from what smelled like tear gas. Gunfire echoed from multiple directions. Security alarms blared. Mrs. Park led them through service corridors and hidden passages Bryn hadn't known existed. Minji clung to Bryn's hand, silent but shaking. The safe room is through the pantry, Mrs. Park whispered. There's a tunnel that leads to a garage 2 blocks away. A car will be waiting. They crept through the kitchen, staying low. The pantry door was just ahead when 2 men in tactical gear appeared at the other end of the hall. Run! Bryn shouted, pushing Minji forward. Mrs. Park stepped into the hallway, directly in the men's path. Go. I'll hold them. Bryn hesitated for a split second. Then she grabbed Minji and sprinted for the pantry. Behind them, Mrs. Park shouted something in Korean. Gunshots. A cry cut short. Bryn didn't look back. She couldn't. The pantry had a false wall at the back, just as Mrs. Park had said. Bryn pushed the hidden latch and a section of shelving swung inward, revealing a steel door. She punched in the code Taehyun had made her memorize and pulled Minji inside. The safe room was small but well equipped. Steel-reinforced walls. Communication system. Supplies for several days. Daddy? Minji whispered, looking around as if expecting Taehyun to be there. He'll find us, Bryn promised, gathering the child into her arms. He always finds us. She activated the communication system, but there was no response. Just static. Hours passed. Minji eventually fell asleep, exhausted from fear and adrenaline. Bryn sat beside her, the gun still in her hand, listening to the muffled sounds of fighting above. And then, finally, silence. Bryn's phone buzzed, the first signal she'd had since entering the safe room. A text message from Taehyun. It's over. We're clear. Come home. When Bryn emerged from that safe room, carrying a sleeping Minji in her arms, she found Taehyun waiting in the destroyed foyer. He was bruised, bleeding from a cut above his eye, but alive. Elder Moon was not. And the message had been sent: anyone who threatened the Namgung family would not survive to threaten them again. Sunlight filtered through broken windows, painting strips of gold across the bullet-scarred walls of the Namgung mansion. In the foyer, staff were sweeping up glass and scrubbing bloodstains from the marble floor. Security teams patrolled the grounds, their faces grim and watchful despite the victory. Bryn sat in the kitchen with Minji, making pancakes as if it were any normal morning. As if there hadn't been a gun battle in their home just hours ago. As if Mrs. Park hadn't died protecting them. More blueberries? She asked Minji, trying to keep her voice light. The little girl nodded, pushing her pancakes around without eating them. Is Daddy okay? He's fine, baby. Just busy cleaning up the mess. And Mrs. Park? Is she really? Bryn set down the spatula and knelt beside Minji's chair. Yes, sweetie. She's gone. But she helped save us at the end. She made a bad choice before, but a good choice when it mattered most. Minji's eyes filled with tears. She was nice to me. Even when she was being bad. People are complicated like that sometimes. Bryn smoothed Minji's hair. We can be sad about losing her and still be glad we're safe. Taehyun found them like that, Bryn comforting Minji while pancakes burned on the stove. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and butterfly bandages on the cut above his eyebrow. But he was alive. They all were. He crossed the kitchen and switched off the stove, then simply stood there, looking at them like he couldn't quite believe they were real. Hey, Bryn said softly. Hey. His voice was rough from shouting orders all night. Minji slid from her chair and ran to him. He caught her, lifting her into his arms and holding her like she might disappear if he loosened his grip. I was scared, she whispered. Me too. He pressed his face against her hair. But you were so brave. Both of you were. Later, after Minji had finally eaten something and gone to nap in Bryn's room, her own still being cleaned of broken glass, Taehyun told Bryn everything. They sat in his study, one of the few undamaged rooms in the house. Elder Moon had been planning this for years, he explained, his voice flat with exhaustion. Using the Kong family's resources and Suyun's obsession. What did they want? Control. Power. With Minji dead and me broken by grief, they planned to force me into a marriage alliance with Suyun. And if I refused, they'd kill you too, Bryn finished. He nodded. Classic power play. Eliminate the heir, then the leader. The organization falls into chaos, and they step in to restore order. And Mrs. Park? Her son? Found him this morning. Alive, but... Taehyun's jaw tightened. They hurt him badly. He's in the hospital now, with guards. He'll recover physically, but mentally. He shook his head. He had no idea what his mother was being forced to do. She didn't want to hurt anyone, Bryn said softly. She just wanted to save her child. I know. Taehyun leaned back in his chair. I would have done the same. I did do the same, in a way. What do you mean? I married you to protect you. Just like she helped them to protect her son. His eyes met hers. We do desperate things for the people we love. The word love hung in the air between them. And Suyun? Bryn asked, changing the subject slightly. In custody. Her father is trying to negotiate, but it's not looking good for either of them. The council doesn't look kindly on attacks against children. The council? The leaders of the other major families. They're meeting tonight to decide the Kang's fate. Taehyun rubbed his eyes tiredly. It's over, Bryn. They can't hurt us anymore. She studied him, this man who'd forced his way into her life and somehow made a place for himself in her heart. So what happens now? She asked quietly. Taehyun was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where they'd kissed just days ago. That's up to you, he said finally. What do you mean? He turned to face her. The threats are gone. You're safe now. If you want to leave. The words seemed to physically pain him, but he continued. If you want to go back to Memphis, or anywhere else, I won't stop you. I'll set up accounts for you, security if you want it. Whatever you need. Bryn stared at him. You're giving me a choice. Now? I should have given it to you from the beginning. His voice was soft, regretful. I was trying to protect you, but I took something precious from you in the process. Your freedom. Your agency. And if I choose to stay? Something flickered in his eyes, hope, maybe. Or fear. Then you stay as my wife. For real this time. Not because of bullets or protection or obligation, but because you want to. Bryn stood and moved closer to him. You married me without my consent, she said. And I've been angry about that. I know. But I've been thinking about why I'm really angry. She stopped in front of him. It's not because you took my choice away. It's because you gave me something I didn't know how to accept. What's that? A family. A place to belong. Someone who would move heaven and earth to keep me safe. Her eyes met his. I've never had that. And I was so scared it would disappear that I kept one foot out the door. And now? His voice was barely audible. Now I'm choosing. Freely. With clear eyes and no bullets involved. She took his hand. I choose this. I choose Minji. I choose you. For a moment, Taehyun just stared at her, as if afraid to believe what he was hearing. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was something precious and breakable. I don't deserve this, he whispered against her hair. Probably not, she agreed, making him laugh. But you're stuck with me anyway. He pulled back enough to look at her face, his eyes searching hers. I think I'm falling in love with you, Bryn Holloway. And it terrifies me. Good. She smiled. Because I think I'm falling in love with you too, Taehyun Namgung. And it terrifies me right back. This time, when he kissed her, it was different. Their first kiss in the garden had been exploration, discovery. This was certainty. This was choice. This was beginning. His hands cradled her face with impossible gentleness. Her arms wrapped around his waist, pulling him closer. When they broke apart, both a little breathless, she rested her forehead against his chest. So what happens now? She asked again. Now we start over. His fingers traced patterns on her back. We date. We get to know each other. We do this the right way, even if it's in the wrong order. Date? She laughed. I've already been shot for your kid. I think we're way past dating. Humor me. He kissed the top of her head. I want to do at least some of this normally. There's nothing normal about us, Taehyun. True. But we could try for slightly less abnormal. The sound of pattering feet in the hallway made them step apart slightly, though Taehyun kept one arm around Bryn's waist. Minji appeared in the doorway, her eyes widening as she took in the sight of them together. Are you hugging? She asked, a note of wonder in her voice. Yes, Taehyun said simply. Come here, Minji. We need to talk to you about something. The little girl approached cautiously, looking between them. Am I in trouble? No, baby girl. Bryn reached for her. The opposite, actually. Remember how I married Bryn when she was in the hospital? Taehyun knelt down to Minji's level. Well, that was kind of backwards. We did it to keep her safe. But now, we're choosing to stay married because we want to. Because we care about each other. Minji's face scrunched in confusion. But you're already married. Yes, but now we're choosing it. For real. Bryn knelt beside Taehyun. Do you understand what that means? Minji thought for a moment, then her face lit up. It means you're staying. Forever and ever. Yes. Bryn laughed. That's exactly what it means. And we're a real family now? A forever family? A forever family, Taehyun confirmed, his voice thick with emotion. Minji launched herself at them both, her little arms trying to encircle them together. I knew it. I told you. I told you she loved us. Over Minji's head, Bryn met Taehyun's eyes. The ghost of the Gulf, the most dangerous man in Louisiana, had tears on his cheeks. Thank you, he mouthed. She smiled. Thank you for making me fight for this. The weeks that followed were a blur of rebuilding. Reconstruction crews repaired the mansion. Security systems were upgraded. Staff were vetted and replaced where necessary. The organization stabilized under Taehyun's firm guidance. And in the midst of it all, something beautiful grew. Bryn's grandmother arrived from Memphis, moved into a sunny room on the first floor. The hospital